As chair, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome to Planning Board. As I said, Mr. Cole has stepped down. He will be missed, but we need to move on, and so I'm acting as chair tonight. We do have reorganization and some other things on our agenda, but I think that we have a time constraint tonight. We're going to lose one of our members at 20 minutes of 7. So in light of that, we're going to jump right to the public hearing. It's a continuance from 6/27 for 43 Summer Street, Uma Flowers. Do we have everybody that we need to have with us for that presentation? Everybody's muted.
Yeah, their attorney is just signing in. And there's Mr. Ainsley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, this is Ian Ainsley. I'm the civil engineer on the project. The attorney, Mr. Valerio Romano, is signing in right now. And I presume that he will set us up.
I'm sorry, I'm on. Hello, all.
Hey, and you're right out front.
I know, yeah. I wanted to attend virtually.
Valerio, they've opened up the hearing for us, so we're on now.
Oh, great. Yeah, so I don't know if Uma has a lot more to add. Valerio Romano again for Uma Flowers, Lunenburg LLC. I see that we have Ian and various members of our team, including the founder, Priyanka, our security, our architect, Ian's our engineer. And so I'm not sure what additional things the board is looking for from us right now. I know the public hearing's been continued, and I guess my request would be to find out if there's anything else we can supply to the board. And if so, let's get it to you guys. And then otherwise, maybe close the public hearing and see if you guys want to deliberate and discuss.
Recording in progress.
Okay, very good. I neglected to make sure that we have Eric Torgerson with us and that we can hear him and he can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. And because Mr. Torgerson is remote, all of our deliberations are going to need to be roll call, correct?
Yes, all votes are roll call.
All votes are roll call. Very good. So, Mr. Burney, did you have any notes on what we had for outstanding?
The outstanding issues were the comments of the former chair. The questions that had come up previously revolved around conservation. You've been given the issued order of conditions. The questions that the board had, I thought were resolved at the first hearing. The concerns about additional cannabis businesses at the location. The only cannabis business that would be legal at that location is retail. I think it unlikely, although I can never rule it out, that UMA would lease some space on their site to another retail facility. So it would just be simply an expansion of their own retail facility. And other than that, it would be standard commercial uses as permitted under the commercial, or under the use table in the commercial zoning district.
Okay.
The engineering has come back spot on. The board asked some significant questions about the delivery of product and the removal of cash. I felt that the board appeared satisfied. I don't recall any outstanding issues. The physical security of product inside the facility and the security of the facility inside and out, the police chief has given his seal of approval to, going so far as to say he wants to hire the company to do security at his location. So I think from my recollection and my notes, there are no outstanding issues that were raised by members of the board that are here this evening.
Okay, and fire chief is
Has not expressed any concerns.
does not input at all?
I have not.
Mr. Bernie, I can chime in for a second if that's okay.
Please do.
So the one feedback we had from fire and police meetings and discussions, I think, was that we had, make sure the Knox box has an alarm on it. I think, and Bianca's on too, and she could confirm that. But we did interact with fire, and it's not that there was no comment. I think there was sort of a tacit approval, assuming that we had our security stuff done and dealt with the Knox box like that. So it's not that there was no interaction. There was definitely no opposition. And I'm pretty sure Bianca and Tejal met with your fire.
I agree with exactly what Val said. The fire chief was only concerned with the Knox box. He had no other comments.
So he reviewed what our proposal was and met with members of the team, and there was just a Knox box.
Okay.
I apologize. The sound injection into this room is kind of exactly at the point that I have trouble hearing. So I know there's one small concern the fire chief raised that said was going to be addressed, but I didn't understand what it was.
It was putting an alarm on the Knox box.
Okay.
So a Knox box is a fancy little metal box that has a proprietary key that the fire department has, and inside that are keys to each facility.
Got it.
So when the fire department shows up, instead of them getting out the old axes like you see in the movies, they get out the key out of the truck and they go and open it, and they open it themselves in rather than causing property damage. And I think what they're looking for is a security system to be linked to the Knox box so that when it is opened, if it's opened, an alarm also sounds.
Lovely.
And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Bernie, Mr. Wilder is on also our security manager or our security contractor, and we do have, and we've committed to having, fulfilling that requirement.
Okay.
So that's all resolved. We have an alarmed Knox box, and I know Mr. Wilder has put them in other places as well, so that's all resolved.
Okay, so you satisfied the only comment that the fire chief had?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Very good. And my opinion is that the security is pretty much handled, because this is a state permit, this is pretty much handled by the police chief?
Yes.
We really don't have much, I wouldn't
Yep.
think, wouldn't have much input on that anyway.
It's also regulated by the CCC, but we have got it approved, and we did sit with the police chief, and we showed them all the different features of it, and they would have access to mostly the cameras to see what was going on in case of an emergency. And then we did handle the Knox box, which we would tie into our alarm system so that get into the facility, but there would be an alarm that would go off, and then we would notify the owners and the personnel. So that has been addressed.
Right.
Thanks, Andy. And additionally, the police chief, I know, sent a correspondence and a letter to Ms. Lemieux describing the fact that we'd satisfied the police department's concerns as well. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yes,
I know
the
that.
board's been given that as well.
Very good. Yeah, and the Knox box is a really good idea. It would really suck to axe through the front door and get stuck in a sally port with the...
Especially this place is very secure.
So the select board, have they had input on this?
They signed the host community agreement.
The host community agreement
That
is-
was part of, in order to apply to the Cannabis Control Commission, the applicant needed to have a signed host community agreement and have held their community meeting, both of which happened. They've been issued their provisional license, which was provided to the board by email along with the order of conditions. So they've satisfied the bylaw
Okay.
as far as what's required of them for submission. And now it's the board's determination whether or not they feel it's an adequate submission and whether or not it meets the standards of the bylaw.
Okay. And recently I've heard that Governor Baker has issued legislation updating or revising the CCC regulations. Is that correct?
I have not heard that he signed it.
I can speak to that if
Okay.
you'd like, Mr. Bernie. Yeah, he actually did sign it just a few days ago. And it goes to the host community agreement, but your town was, and your town manager, very thoughtful, and, the host community agreement didn't really exceed the basic principles of what was allowed under the law. I think the HCA stuff that the governor did really just sort of further described what was already the rules, and you guys were following them anyway. So there's no real issue there. We have the HCA done. We sent it to the commission. The Cannabis Control Commission actually issued us a license. So now we just have to build out, assuming that we're awarded these permits and approval from this board, and then we get a final license from the commission. So nothing that the governor did last week, and then the legislature did a couple weeks before that, actually gets in the way of what we're doing now.
The worst that would have happened is they could have amended or struck our host community agreement. So it would have impacted any payments we got, but it wouldn't have nullified their licensing through the Cannabis Control Commission.
Now, if it had been struck, would a new one have been achieved, or would that just go away?
I'm not really sure. I think in general, this was to address communities that were taking the 3%, as well as educational fees and police fees, and looking
required charitable donations. Of,
looking to cash in on cannabis to benefit the town and charities and sports leagues within town that were above and beyond what was permitted.
So my understanding is that the CCC has not approved our host community agreement yet. Is that correct?
So at the time that we did ours, the Cannabis Control Commission did not review host community agreements. And they're, as far as I know, and I represent a bunch of these groups, they're not going back for all the historical host community agreements and making sure they're all in line. Now, one could submit and bring it to the commission to have that done, but ours, so all you did was you sent a host community agreement certification form, which was signed by the town and by one of the owners of Uma Flowers. And that one's done, and the commission accepted that and issued us a license. So I do not believe that they're going back and reviewing every past host community agreement, unless an operator or a licensee maybe makes an issue of one of their agreements.
Okay. And just to cover the town, would it behoove us to get input from town council on that, or no?
I know that the town manager has been in contact with town council regarding it and has been following the issue to ensure that there an effect to the HCA.
Okay, but the legislation's only a couple weeks old now.
Correct, but the legislation's, but it's been going through the State House for several months.
We all saw it coming, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not it was finally approved a couple of weeks ago and went to Governor Baker, and, I guess he signed it a few days ago. But everyone was aware of what the language was, and it closely resembles, if it's not the exact same bill that was published, 2 or 3 months ago, correct, Mr. Romano?
Yes, it's been going on at 3028 or 3068, Senate Bill 3068, I think it is. I can find the number again, but yeah, it's been going on for months, and it's been deliberated and voted on by both houses, and eventually went to the governor's desk. And so I don't think there's any big surprise there, but if we'd love to keep this thing moving along, and if the board would like to make a condition of the permit that as allowed by law, we will continue to work with the town to make sure that our host community agreement remains enforceable. I'm sure we'd be happy with something like that, because it's a given anyway.
Did you get that?
It wouldn't be something that we would object to, whether it came directly from the select board or this board wanted to make it a condition of the permit. It wouldn't be something that we would object to.
Super. Thank you.
I actually think, this is already, like Mr. Bernie said, this was going around the State House for a while. So everybody who was involved was sort of aware of it. And our host community agreement was approved by the agreement wasn't, but the certification form was approved by the Cannabis Control Commission. So I almost think that that's sort of, the other board deals with that part. And And generally, in front of this board are the issues with the special permit and site plan, or special permits and site plan approval.
Super, thank you very much for that. Any further questions, concerns?
I do not have any at this time.
Okay, no?
None from me.
Mr. Torgerson? Any concerns, questions?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we'll open it up to public comment. This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody in the waiting room?
We don't have anybody in the waiting room.
And-
We have some folks here. I don't see anyone with a hand raised. I only see one person that I recognize as the public from previous hearings. I know that UMA has a expansive team, so I think the rest may be associated with them.
Okay, well, if anybody does have any public comment, please, please speak up. No public comment. Okay. I think we received some public comment at the first meeting, first hearing?
Yes, there was an abutter who is a party in interest in the abutting property and owns residential property nearby, and their concerns were similar to the board, what the use of the additional commercial space would be, and if it would be cannabis-related or not.
Okay.
And I can't certainly speak for that person, but I, again, recall them having been satisfied by the answer that was given, that retail cannabis is the only thing allowed on that site, and again, it wouldn't necessarily be in UMA's best interest to lease to a competitor.
Sure. All right, I think we're about ready to close the hearing. Are there any further things that we should ask or inquire or state to your?
I don't believe so. You do have a draft decision that I believe outlines the process and what reasonably would be an approval document for the 3 approvals. I'm certainly willing and have it up and I'm willing to change and alter it as necessary.
So we've got the site plan approval, the floodplain. Right?
Yep. Site plan approval, flood permit, and a stormwater permit. No, not stormwater, and the marijuana permit.
Right, and so this is considered a limited project because it's redevelopment, is that correct?
For conservation? Or for storm?
I mean, the last redevelopment we had was Whalen Drive-In, right?
Correct, and that predated the stormwater bylaw that we have now.
Is that why we had so much back and forth about the redevelopment?
Yes.
Okay.
And that there was also some back-end conservation issues, redevelopment, new development. But from our perspective, this doesn't even qualify for stormwater because they're not disturbing an acre.
Okay.
Whereas the Whalen Drive-In was a different.
Yep.
I think they gave us back almost an acre of pervious surface.
All right, well, unless anybody has anything else, I guess we can go ahead and close the public hearing.
That requires a motion, right?
I believe so.
I would move to close the public hearing for 43 Summer Street.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion about closing the hearing? Hearing none. All in favor of closing the public hearing by roll call vote, please express aye or nay. Ms. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Brenner?
Aye.
Mr. Torgerson?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. We are closed with the public hearing. So, what do we have to discuss? Just the conditions?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to catch up here.
Sure. Take your time. You got a new one now.
So who made the motion? Was that Mr. Brenner?
Yep.
Yes.
And it was seconded by Ms. Reed. So the findings would be in question. Well, not in question. The board would want to ensure that they do find those things. The board would also want to talk about construction hours and any conditions. Again, I used standard conditions. There is a stormwater system that will be maintained and whatnot, so we kept in some of those stormwater conditions about reporting and maintenance, and then there were 2 special conditions that reflect what we had talked about. The approvals issued by this document are limited to the operation of non-medical marijuana retail facility only, the location of additional commercial uses, the expansion of the non-medical marijuana retail, or other significant alterations to the property will require a modification to be filed with the planning board. Note, the application was filed in the commercial zoning district. Again, maintaining the historic record because it is in the Summer Street overlay, and it can get really fuzzy when you start trying to do things under different zoning districts. And then the second special condition would be in respect to what we discussed this evening. Uma Flowers and/or its successors in interest will work with the town to ensure that the existing host community agreement will remain in full force and effect. If this is not possible, the applicant will work with the town to create a new compliant host community agreement. Is that acceptable to Mr. Romano and his clients?
Yeah, I believe so, but Mr. Bernie, can you repeat the first sentence of that? That's not in the draft decision you circulated, right? That's from tonight. Can you repeat the first half of that again?
Sure.
Just so I can...
Uma Flowers and/or its successors and interests will work with the town to ensure that the existing host community agreement will remain in full force and effect.
Yes.
If this is not possible, the applicant will work with the town to create a new compliant HCA.
Sure, yeah.
Excellent. And is this really referred to as non-medical marijuana?
Yes.
Not recreational?
Not recreational.
Okay.
I think I asked this question a while ago, and it got answered, and I apologize, but I remember the original application being for medical and non-medical, or am I confusing things in my mind?
I think, if I recall correctly, there was some discussion of that at the community meeting. I think when the actual application packet was filed, the medical was dropped.
Okay.
Am I misremembering that?
Oh, that's correct, Mr. Bernie. Originally we had hoped to do both, but all decided just on retail, and it's really it's due to the commission. There's also some nuance in your zoning bylaw between the 2 uses, but the commission has basically hurt medical significantly and making it far more expensive and requiring vertical integration for applicants. And so we abandoned medical for the time being. And if the commission brings medical in line with adult use or non-medical, however we're going to call it, then of course we would probably pursue that again. But it has a lot to do with the commission.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I believe I am satisfied with these things as they are put, aside from the, on our markup where we need to make some decisions, but otherwise I believe I am satisfied.
Okay. As was previously stated, it is a commercial zoned area. However, there are residences within the area, not real close, but fairly close. I don't think they're directly abutted by any residential uses, are they?
The property that is directly abutting them to the west is a commercial property that I misspoke, is a mixed-use property that does include a residential apartment. The property line is greater than 250 feet from the facility, and there is significant natural buffering by way of the river and associated wetland and reedy, marshy business.
But they're mostly downhill, right?
They are downhill from all of the residences, yes.
I mean, but there's a gully between the residences and,
Yeah, I mean, there's not a gully, there's a literal river.
okay, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
I mean, and not like a creek, it's like significant river.
Okay.
And it exceeds the setback requirement under your bylaw, the 250, as Mr. Burns said.
Do we need to be at all concerned about input after the close of the hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll keep my mouth shut. I'll go on mute.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I just want to make sure that
It's
we're
not
good.
new information.
Okay. Just wanted to
and
remind.
It's information that I had just provided as well.
Very good. Very good. So in light of that, I think we could give them a little bit more leniency on their construction hours. But that's just my thought.
I agree.
Mr. Sin, do you see an issue with being more lenient with the hours?
I see no issues with that.
Okay, thank you. So what we typically do in non-residential areas, we do 7 or 8?
We do 7 to 5, 8 to 3.
Does that sound good to everybody?
That sounds fine to me.
Yeah. Mr. Torgerson, 7 to 5 and 8 to 3 on Saturdays?
That works for me.
Okay, we are all in agreement on the hours and
No Sundays and holidays.
no Sundays and holidays, and that's the only blank you had, right? Aside from the proceedings?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that I needed clarification on, other than who made what motion and the like.
All right, I guess then we're at that time, we take a vote, yea or nay?
I would, how does this have to be? Do we have to can we make a motion for, site plan and special permit?
You should probably make, yeah.
Or is it separate?
I would say do 3 separate motions.
Okay,
Actually,
that's-
you know what? No. You can do one motion to incorporate all, including the findings that the board has made in the decision.
Okay. If it's gonna, I'll do multiple if we think that's
No,
safe.
because the decision's written as one, so
Okay.
you can make one motion that would incorporate them all.
Okay, so I would move that the board approve the site plan review, special permit for floodplain alteration, and special permit for non-medical marijuana retail establishment for 43 Summer Street.
I will second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Did I need to say anything about our special conditions? Oh.
Including the conditions as read,
Including the conditions as read,
or as written,
or as
rather.
written.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Okay, great.
she seconds the second.
Second.
And just so the board's aware, I did provide the applicant with a draft copy of the approval so that they were aware of what the conditions were and what was contained within the decision.
Okay, so they have what we have now in
Yes.
front of us.
Great.
So that's just the one additional and
Correct.
then the hours. Super, so I guess then we're ready to vote. Be roll call. All in favor of approving the application, Mr. Torgerson,
Aye.
Mr. Brenner,
Aye.
Mrs. Reed,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Thank you very much. Best of luck with your future endeavors, and thank you for your patience.
And thank you very much to the board for, really scrutinizing and working with us. And Mr. Bernie has got to be one of the best people in his position that I've worked with over the years. He's absolutely fantastic and responsive, and we appreciate all the town's time. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Do you need a minute to catch up?
No, I need a minute to be able to print this
Okay.
stupid thing.
Do we need to do that now, or do we?
Do we need,
Keeping it fresh in your head?
do we need to do it now? No, but do any of you really want to come to the office to sign it?
I was just thinking we could include Mr. Torgerson in as much more of the agenda as possible.
Yeah, go for it. Keep going.
Okay.
I would go hit back reorganization.
Yeah, so, call to order, we did, board vacancy. So the board vacancy created a need to reorganize and created a vacancy as our open space ad hoc community representative. So basically, I'd be willing to fill in any spot that's needed. And I would also be willing to fill in for the open space committee representative. But we'll stay on the reorganization for now. For people not familiar with it, we need to, we need to get a motion and a second, a nomination and a second for the nomination.
I just lost Mr. Torgerson because,
Well, maybe he signed off.
no, the Wi-Fi disconnected.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm right here.
Oh, look at that.
Super.
I'm right. I am right here.
Excellent. I dropped off.
So, again, basically, a nomination and a second for the nomination. And, if there are more than one, we'll take nominations for all the people for a certain position. And then, if there are more than one, you can only vote for one when it comes to it. So, currently, we have myself as vice chair. We have Mr. Brenner as the clerk. So, I guess I'll ask for any interest first.
I had said to Ms. Reed previously, I am willing to take the role of to step into the role of chair. I have plenty of years running meetings. I'm not 100% in my parliamentary. By the same token, Mr. Allison, you served as chair very well in the past, and I was curious if this was. I am willing, but not particularly seeking. So I was curious if this is a role that is of interest to you.
Like you said, I've done it before. I feel comfortable with it. And if you don't feel you have any hesitation, then I certainly am willing and able to do it. However, I don't want to discourage you. If you feel that you are ready, then I would welcome that as well.
I feel that I am ready, but don't particularly need that in my life right now.
Okay. I understand. I understand.
I would like to nominate Matthew Allison for the role of chair.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, I will take a roll call vote. All in favor of myself being the chair, please affirm or negative. Mrs. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Brenner?
Aye.
Mr. Torgerson?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Congratulations to me, I guess. So now we need a vice chair and a clerk. So let me go back to anybody have any interest? I assume that since you had interest in chair, you would have interest in vice chair?
I'm perfectly happy to serve in that role. If Ms. Reed was chomping at the bit saying, I really want to be vice chair,
No. No, thank you.
then I would be perfectly happy in that role if I were nominated.
Mr. Torgerson, do you have any interest in being the vice chair or the clerk?
I wouldn't have the ability to do so now, no.
Okay, very good. Well, I think that kind of makes the decision for us. So I would take a nomination for the vice chair.
I will put forth a motion to nominate Mr. Brenner as the vice chair.
Very good.
I'll second it.
Excellent, thank you. Any further discussion about vice chair? Hearing none, by roll call, all in favor. Mr. Torgerson?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I keep mixing this up. Mrs. Reed,
Aye.
Mr. Brenner,
Aye,
and an aye for myself. Congratulations.
thank you.
It makes sense to go to the computer first.
Okay.
I would nominate Ms. Reed for the role of clerk.
I'll be willing to.
Mr. Torgerson, can you second that?
I can, yes, I will second it.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Torgerson,
Aye.
Mr. Brenner,
Aye.
Mrs. Reed,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Congratulations to all of us.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. All right, so I did say that I was going to mention it before, so I'm not even going to wait till board comments. What happens if next week I decide that I need to step down?
We only have 3 members.
So we cannot see special permits?
We can see them, we just can't ever approve them.
Well, you can't see them without the quantum, right?
No, you can, they just would never have an opportunity to be approved.
Oh, okay. Well, so we'd be SOL for special permits and whatever else requires a 2/3 vote, which I'm not sure what else requires 2/3 planning.
It's pretty much special permits.
Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that up, and then that applies to any of the 4 of us. If we lose one more member before we get an appointment to fill the vacancy, we will not be able to approve special permits. And it would put us at a distinct disadvantage. So, open space. Does anybody have a burning desire to do open space?
That is of interest to me. I believe, Mr. Ellison, you expressed as well that you seemed very strongly interested in that as well a few months ago. I don't know if that's still the case.
Yep. Well, either way, I mean, how many, I've only got 2, well, I've only got 1 committee position, which is the building reuse, and I'm already an appointed member to GAGCOM. So I have the least of the burden here, I think, aside from Mr. Torgerson. I don't believe has got any. But I think you guys took on 3 or 4 each?
I have 2 right now,
2 or 3, okay.
but
Either way. And I don't see any reason that once we do get someone else on the board, that we could look at reorganization at that point?
You definitely could look at reorganizing to include them in whatever committees you wanted to.
Okay.
I would nominate Mr. Allison for the, well, actually, Ms. Reed, was that something that was of interest to you?
No.
That's fine.
Only because I'm on 3 committees,
I
so,
expected that were the case, but I realized I didn't want to
thank you.
trample.
No, those are evening meetings, right?
What?
6, open space?
Yes. They might even be 7.
I think it's
7.
7:30.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a nice meeting time. I nominate.
Get out of bedtime.
I would nominate Mr. Allison for the role of our representative to the Open Space Ad Hoc Committee.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, Mr. Torgerson,
Aye.
Mr. Brenner,
Aye.
Mrs. Reed,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Well, thank you again, and congratulations again to myself. Public hearings,
Tonight.
we're just knocking them off, though. So 260 Flula has asked for a continuance?
They have.
Okay.
They have asked for continuance till September 26th due to the city of Fitchburg at a later date than anticipated requested a peer review.
Okay.
And that peer review has not come back yet. And they felt it was a waste of everybody's time to move forward without that.
So that's just paperwork on your end? We don't have to do anything to continue it?
You need to vote.
We do need to vote to
Yeah.
continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we know when we're looking? When's our-
26 September.
Okay. I would move to continue the public hearing for 260 Falula Road to the 26th of September, 2022 at 6:05
Yep.
PM.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the continuance, Mr. Torgerson?
Aye.
Mr. Brenner?
Aye.
Mrs. Reed?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Super. That rounds us out of the public hearings and into board discussion, driveways and entrances. And let me just start
At
off.
this time, I gotta get out.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. Bye.
So at this point, there being only 3 members, and this is a potential bylaw revision,
It is.
I'm not sure that, well, I mean, I don't have a problem talking about it, but I don't think that we should make any kind of binding decisions for the board with only 3 members.
No, and I mean, this isn't binding
It's not
decision
binding.
time.
Right.
This is,
Right, town
hey,
meeting.
here's a bunch of stuff. What do you guys think time?
Well, as we've been told, anything at town meeting is not binding because we can go back the next year and change.
Also true.
Everything is non-binding in town government.
I feel like that's not what the term means.
Well,
I will also say that there is another change that I recently came across that I think I would like to bring to the board's attention.
okay.
And we can do it before this, but motels are by right in the commercial district. And that doesn't feel like what the board might want in the long term.
How did that come to be?
That was part of the use table change. So whether somebody suggested it and we put it in there and it never was reviewed, but hotels are by special permit.
So what's the difference between a hotel and a motel?
Hotel is usually a multi-story block, and a motel is usually a single-story park in front of or 2-story. Usually motels have direct access to the exterior. Hotels share a common corridor. Both provide rooms for let with maid service and have a similar operational nature. The physical nature is different.
So the hotel is a larger infrastructure build and the motel is typically less?
The hotel usually is more gate kept because you go through the lobby past the desk. Motel has this that you can bypass and go directly to whatever room or facility.
And it's the motel that's currently by right?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. What do we have to say about that?
I think I get why we don't want this by right, just because it sounds like something that should need to be looked at. I don't know if there's more specific. I'm not well versed here to be like, oh, of course, this is.
So I would expect, based on the way that our zoning generally works, I would think this would be a special permit. I don't necessarily think it's something the community would want to outright prohibit. I also don't think it's something the community is like, yeah, sure, put it anywhere that we've zoned commercially.
Right. But I will add one comment. It's not that it wouldn't get looked at by this group because there are no existing current motels, so it would definitely go through a site plan approval.
It would be site plan, however,
We couldn't say no.
you can't say, it's not that you can't say no. You can't go to the use. You can only say no to the physical embodiment of that use based on a series of objective criteria that can also be conditioned to comply. So a no is a bar that's much higher than well, if you do this, this, and this, then I guess we're kind of okay with it.
So it would be mostly a site-specific ability to say no based on,
Inability to meet an objective criteria, whereas a special permit provides for a subjective review of the use and the context of said use and whether it would be appropriate within the bounds of the parcel where it's proposed to be located.
yes.
Oh, I have very strong feelings about that then. Yes, I would like that to be by special permit.
Okay.
I almost can't tell if you're being facetious.
No,
or
I am not being, no, as me hearing the logic and going, I enthusiastically believe I agree.
I would agree as well, yeah.
Okay. I would also tend to agree. So if we were talking about common driveways and entrances, which is where the common driveway resides, right?
Correct.
And they're not really in the same spot, are they?
They're not. You didn't anticipate this. I didn't anticipate this. No one's made a decision.
Welcome to planning board. Okay, well, if you want to add that to our
I
board
will put it
discussion.
on for the next.
Yeah? And I still have not gotten back to you. I have a couple of towns that I like their common driveways.
Okay.
Acton had a really good one, but they got really technical on it, and I didn't like a lot of their
I
technicality.
read Acton and I said, I'm not going to bring this because they're going to go, there's too much technical in this.
Right, but I do like the meat and potatoes of it.
And so, yes, I tried to stay truer to what we currently have in our common driveway, which is an incredibly limited number on a simple driveway. So we only allow 2. I was unable to find another community that limited it to 2. But I didn't, I was gonna say, I tried to stick in the 3 and 4 range with the understanding that the board may balk at the number, but looking at the technical of it. I don't even think, from a planning or a layout perspective, I'm not necessarily opposed to 4. My professional opinion is, if you're going to use a common driveway, what you're trying to do is you're trying to limit the interactions of private property and public roads. And in doing so, you're creating a safer environment in more rural areas because there's less conflict points.
You don't have a driveway every 100 feet.
Correct. And you place the onus of some maintenance and safety on a collective group around a shared facility. What I would be hesitant to recommend would be the ability to use said common driveway for frontage, to allow for properties to have no frontage on the public road and access via common driveway.
Is that a state requirement?
No. I mean, not on,
I thought they had a 20-foot minimum by the state
oh, you mean from Mass Dot?
for frontage, for a lot frontage.
No, it's 50 and 5,000 to be considered under section 6, 48-6, which is the pre-existing non-conforming. They're 50 feet of frontage, 5,000 square
Okay.
feet to be considered a pre-existing non-conforming lot for zoning purposes. You can't have a lot, frontage is a function of zoning, it's up to the community. So you could have a 0 frontage, would be
That would
absolutely insane.
That would
but,
open up a huge can of worms.
my feeling is people should have to have frontage. They should have to have adequate frontage. And if the common driveway doesn't split those lots, I think if the rules are written correctly, you don't necessarily invite additional development by doing this. You potentially invite more thoughtful and safer development. Our common driveway is by right if it meets the very limited criteria we've set out. I didn't come across many other common driveways that were by right. Many of them are by special permit. Also, they allow for greater numbers, but they also have more specificity about the construction, the width, the length, access, those kind of things. So I think it's a matter of finding the balance of where the board thinks it's reasonable and what they think that town meeting would accept. If the board thinks it's 2, then that's fine. I think we can do it by right the way that we have it. I think we can put some more specific language to it. But what I found in looking about, and I, again, tried to stick to communities that were in our range, our ballpark, was by right isn't generally done, and it's generally between 3 and 7. Some communities use them almost as minor roads. I think you really push a limit there, and I don't think that works. I think in more urban communities, there are opportunities to do pocket communities that would be better off than common driveways where you share a common central space that is parking adjacent and the houses face that instead of the road, but we're not an urban community, so that's really neither here nor there. That's me off on another tangent.
I like that design anyway, even for our community, if we could foster it.
I think there's opportunities to do it in our community. I think that if it was something we really wanted to look at more, I think something like our planned residential area or some offshoot of that is the place we would look at that. The common driveway, I think, is a much more single family, a much more individual lot sort of thing that we offer, and I feel like in the past 3 or 4 years, it's caused more consternation than it has benefit. Because the building commissioners have interpreted it one way, members of the board have other feelings towards it. Builders want to use it for everything because it's cheaper and it makes their lives easier and they can do this, that, and the other thing. And just some clarification, I think, is going to pay dividends for the process. Could we be doing more special permits if we make it a special permit? Absolutely. But also, you might see fewer common driveways.
And then also, if we did increase the number, it would have made the 5 lots on Northfield and Holman Street accessible with only 1 driveway on Northfield.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
I mean, it really does change the way that you look at and the way you impact things. And it has the potential to reduce the amount of impervious area that gets put out there.
That's a good point.
Does it necessarily reduce it? No. I don't know that it increases it either.
Yeah. I think that it would statistically reduce the impervious.
Yeah, I think on a whole it would. I think individual developments you might end up with parity, but you may end up with a more thoughtful design for houses. It changes wetlands impacts potentially. And I, what I would think the board would also want to consider in looking at frontage is having standards similar to what the A&R frontage is. Is it illusory frontage or is it vital practicable access that one could develop a individual driveway there and they're not doing it in order to do this more thoughtful design?
I agree with that statement, but I would like to see us go one step further in the specific nature that A&Rs, you can be blocked by wetlands, for example. Wetlands don't count as illusory access. That's a separate beast. I would rather that the alternative frontage be real, so that we're not creating, I don't know if I'm using the right words here, like to communicate my point. I don't want us to create a scenario where we are taking lots that were previously undevelopable. And this becomes an avenue by which they are now developable.
Yes, I agree. That's exactly what I was.
Yeah, and so my concern there being, if we simply use the illusory language or concept, then
yes.
then we are very likely, I think, to still end up with lots, with that issue.
So, in the event that, and I guess it would be a case-by-case basis. If you had a lot and the entire frontage had a wetland here, not off the road, but into the lot, and in order to access the upland in the lot, you needed to cross that. Conservation could do that as a limited. If you divide that up, I don't know that that changes the limited project status because the limited project existed before. If you had a wetland over here, but not over here, and you create a lot just here, they're not required to approve that, is my understanding, because you've created a hardship for yourself. You've created that limited project. So I would think in this instance, the common driveway would be beneficial because theoretically they could do a series of limited projects and this would create one that would access. In this instance with the singular, I would agree with you that this should not be permitted to be developed because it is currently undevelopable based on the way it was created and divided. Now, we'll have to put some thought into how we write that, but I think that's a completely reasonable approach. I mean, we have so much backland in weird configurations that may or may not be developable over the long term. And I think people are going to get creative more and more as time goes on.
So there's an associated thing here that we only allow reduced frontage lots 2 at a time.
Correct.
So that number 2 and this number 2 for common driveways probably have something to do with each other?
Potentially. One would infer that, but I don't know that that's the case.
So let's think of a scenario, if we did not change the reduced frontage lots, we only continued to allow 2, but we allowed 4 parcels on a common driveway. How would you see that working?
I'm just making a note to myself.
Sure. Every once in a while I say something important.
I mean, I guess it could work any which way. You could have 250s and 200s. The 250s in the middle, the 200s on the outside. Driveway goes up the gut, splits off to the 200s and continues out to split off to the 250s. You could have 250s, 100, and a 50, theoretically, if you have enough land. Really, the driveway is only an issue in so far as where it gets placed and how you place the houses. I mean, and it's going to depend on land shape, because if you're, let's say we're in outlying and you need, 2 acres and 4 acres for these, and you've got a 2-acre square in the front for the 100-foot frontage, or the normal frontage, it's probably going to be more than 100 feet because you need 175 through the lot. And then you've got 250s on one side and a 50 on the other. In theory, the single could sit behind the large lot, and the drive come up with the 2 reduced frontage. And if you, depending on how you lay them out, it's just puzzling the lots together. I mean, it makes for some weird lots, but I mean, we saw a developer put puzzle pieces together to get a common driveway under our current regs that
was very creative.
And now needs to come back to us.
Does it?
They ended up with a driveway that had just under 100 feet in the 50-foot no structure zone, and conservation said no.
I thought it was 30 feet no touch.
They're 30-foot no touch.
Driveway's a structure?
It's impervious cover. They consider that a structure.
That's a little silly in my mind, but
Well,
I'm not on conservation thing.
I was gonna say, and so now they're looking at having to shift everything by like 8 feet. So everything they're gonna have to modify the stormwater permit, they're gonna have to get a new A&R signed.
We warned them.
Yep. I think in this instance, part of the issue is there's a surveyor, a wetland consultant, and an engineer,
And they're all working.
and they're working like this, and software isn't lining up, and I don't, as much of a headache as it might seem for us, I don't want to think about what it's like for any of the 3 people working on it, or the person who has to pay all 3 of them.
Out of mind. Okay, do we want to discuss
I mean,
anything?
do you want to discuss specifics?
Of driveways?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm comfy with that.
I mean, I'm looking to you guys to say, oh, I really liked this town, I really didn't like this town.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize. I had the fantasy of sitting on the back deck while in the mountains, reading this while looking at the mountains. I incorporated like half of that into my routine. I definitely sat on the back
Sitting
deck.
on the back deck and looking at the mountains.
Yeah.
Thinking about this. There you go. That was pretty good.
I mean, this is an annual town meeting thing. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any way that we're going to get this for fall.
No.
No, I concur with that.
The warrant opens tomorrow and closes in September. I think towards the end of September. So, I mean, this is a winter project.
Yep.
I'm happy to discuss it tonight. If you all say, you know what, it's been July and August, we haven't looked at it, I'll say, okay. I mean, you don't work for me.
I'm happy to discuss. I don't have anything to bring forward right now.
I mean, and I think some of what has been said tonight gives me some ideas. I guess my questions are you open to more than 2 lots as a group?
I'm certainly open to talking about it.
I came in tonight, and if you had just asked me that question as I sat down, I would have said, why would you think I would think that's a good idea? That I hear a lot of sound reasoning, so I am open to talking about it, because I hear a lot of, the gears are turning on why and how this could work for us.
And I imagine you're open to the potential of a special permit. I mean, it's a little bit more work for the board, but I think you're already putting that work into what we're seeing when somebody comes in and says, I want to do a common driveway, even if it's by right. There tends to be at least some discussion about it, so, I mean, special permit doesn't need to be complicated. It can be done in one meeting if the board thinks it's reasonable. And honestly, if someone's putting a common driveway in that's gonna need a special permit, they're probably also doing a stormwater permit. So they're already here talking about the relevant issues.
I'm trying to think this through. I can't conceive of any reason your average homeowner would need to be concerned with establishing a common driveway.
I mean, this is generally going,
Well, like,
there was a couple of years ago, a couple who had a common driveway that they needed to move in order to accommodate a septic system. And they needed to go through a process. Again, the issue with the special permit, it doesn't need to be expensive. You're an elected board, you choose your own fees. You can set a specific fee for common driveway. You have the right to waive any and all of your fees. Really, the advertising is the thing that gets, somewhat expensive, because we advertise in the Sentinel Enterprise. And so it's a few $100s. Whereas if you advertise in the Ledger, it's like $40. The benefit is Sentinel Enterprise publishes regularly on a good schedule, and you know what the deadlines are. If someone really wants to save some money, a homeowner, and came to us and said, look, we're trying to just do this on the cheap, I would work with them to advertise in the Sentinel Enterprise. I'm sorry, the Ledger, yes, thank you. That lengthens the process, which is already, 4 weeks or so. So it probably makes it 5 or 6. If someone's willing to do that, that's not an issue. There's ways around some of those things. I understand that in general. I don't think we're going to see average homeowner come in and say, I need a common driveway.
That, I was trying to come up with a reason that would be the case, and if we're saying maybe even if it was once every couple years, maybe there's something that.
Yeah.
That's not the same as
monthly.
Yeah. Great.
No, and I mean, because most homeowners already have established curb cuts and driveways, and trying to combine for a common driveway just wouldn't really make sense. It's more of a development technique.
That was my understanding. Right?
All right, so things to think about is if we have opportunity to review other towns' common driveways, and
There's times that you're just surfing the internet looking at zoning.
strangely enough, that was my life for a while.
Yeah, so if you just send me that list of the towns that you like, I'll
Okay.
pull them out and.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually like almost all of Acton except for the turnip, the donut at the end. That doesn't make any sense for Lunenburg. The T turnaround, it's a lot less impervious. Because they have very specific dimensions and.
Yeah. I mean, as long as the fire chief is comfortable with it,
Right.
And a lot of them have specified maximum lengths, which I think is another thing to take into consideration.
And do we not currently have? I thought we had a maximum length.
Not for a common.
Wasn't that one next to Stillman's? Wasn't that?
Next.
There was a large lot that got subdivided, the upper lot stayed?
No, that issue was not length, it was grade.
Grade, that's right, I'm sorry.
We have a 12% maximum on driveways, and that driveway was a pre-existing driveway.
Single driveway, yeah.
And so when they added I think she sold the existing house and built herself a new house. And so when they did that, the driveway didn't meet, and she got a dimensional variation on the grade because it was like 13%.
Wasn't much more. Very good. So I'd like to bring stuff up like that, so you guys are aware of, it has happened and it could happen again. And these are all good things to think about when we're not crafting a new bylaw, we're revising an existing one. So I always felt that it was important to have as good of an understanding as we possibly could to understand why this was put in place and why it may have been put in place, or and look our experience in having dealt with it. So are we good with that? We can touch back on that next meeting, or whenever we get to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put it on each meeting, and when you're ready to talk, we'll be here.
Very good.
Thank you.
So we've got 2 sets of minutes to approve.
I would move to approve the minutes for the July 25th meeting of the planning board and the public hearing for 245 Holden Street, also on July 25th.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Right, it's not here, we can do that. Okay.
I assume we can do that, right?
Yeah.
All right. Community reports, open space. I almost went to the last open space meeting, but I didn't do it, so there's obviously no report on that. The Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, excuse me, we've met once since our last meeting. We've had to cancel 2 meetings. And the one meeting that we didn't cancel was fairly abrupt. We weren't all quite ready for the meeting, I guess, and it wasn't a whole lot. It was mostly regurgitation and a little bit more discussion about what we had talked about. Hopefully the next time we meet, we're gonna have our king for a day list. So all the members are gonna have a listing of what they would do if they were in charge. So in my mind, what would I do with TCP and Town Hall and Ritter and Brooks and blah, blah, blah. So that's gonna be probably a good chunk of our next meeting. The chair has been trying to keep the meetings down to an hour and a half. So we'll see how that goes.
See, that's worthy goal, because you guys had some long ones.
Yeah. The Agricultural Commission, we have met finally. We have a new member. She's a new resident, and I spoke to her a couple years ago, just before she moved to her new residence, and she was very astute. She had a lot of questions about the property that she was looking at, and it was great to hear from her about that, and I welcomed her to town, and so now she's our newest member. Our last meeting, we had 4 of us. We basically just reorganized. We had a lot of welcome discussion and some background on Lunenburg and farming in general. She's very familiar with it. So there's really not a whole lot to report, aside from we are in hopes to have discussions with conservation and work together so that the Agricultural Commission can, and I don't believe we're ready for it right now because we are all entirely volunteer. There is no staff whatsoever, but the Mass General laws said AgCom pre-existing 2016, which we were, have the ability by Mass state law to hold land, and the federal program that a local conservation lawyer had come to us with a presentation to talk about is very similar to the A&R process, not A&R, the APR, Agricultural Preservation Restriction. However, it doesn't have the 2 negative caveats that most people don't like about it, is that there is no first right of refusal. If you sell it later down the road, then you can sell it to whoever you want and it goes to them. The other major negative to the APR program is, although it is protected in perpetuity, once you have protected your land and you've made investments to it, you can sell it at any price you can get. There is no restriction to selling it at ag value, which is another really disturbing thing about farms. They get a big bunch of money, they invest it all in infrastructure, and then the parents die, the kids don't want it, they can't sell it for more than peanuts. So anyways.
But the restriction continues on in
The
perpetuity?
restriction continues, yes. The other difference between this program and the APR is that it's a 50-50 match grant from the feds, so there is ideally no money from the town.
Oh, 50 state, 50 federal?
Yep. Well, no, it's 50 federal, and there are opportunities to have the other 50% funded locally by state grants. She's in the person, the lawyer that spoke to us about it, is still getting all the details. It's not set in stone yet. She's still got a lot of questions, so we're nowhere near ready to actually start the program, but we are definitely ready to start discussions with involved people: conservation, open space, agricultural commission, board of select board. So there's that, and that's basically our newest thing. The farmers market has been doing fairly well. The historical commission has been doing very well. They said they've been giving quite a few tours. They had the 1935 fire truck down there for a day. Turnout has not been the greatest, but I expect it'll pick up now that school's back in. Is school back in, or is it?
No,
Another week?
Another week?
I think it starts next week.
It does start next week, Tuesday.
Okay, so we've
Yeah.
got 5 more Sundays
Tuesday.
of market.
Isn't it Tuesday?
That was Wednesday. I should it may well be. I should
I thought it
actually
was
look.
3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's no school Friday.
Oh, that might be
And
right.
then it's a 4-day week and then a 5-day week.
I am the world's
Like-
okayest dad.
Ease this in.
Excellent. So that's pretty much the end of my AgCom report. Capital planning.
Capital had its kickoff meeting while I was out of state, so I need to watch that video and I will report back afterwards.
Did they, was that the joint meeting with the select board, or was that
There was thank you, both, I believe the select board happened. There was the two, and I was gone.
Okay.
But now I am back. They sent out the email, when can you do it? I said, not then. They said, okay then. I'm like, well, very good then.
Super. Committee.
Has not met since our last meeting, I believe, scheduled for this Thursday.
That's correct.
Adam, can I remote into that meeting, out of curiosity, or is that?
We don't have Zoom for it, no.
Not
Okay.
important enough.
Well, we meet next door and there's no remote facilities.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you want to call on the phone, we can.
Yeah, no, I have the boys, and my wife is traveling, so we'll figure it out.
Bring 'em along.
You can bring the boys.
Oh, then that's fine. Then I'll bring them on, plug them in. They'll be very happy.
No one's, I mean,
Then that's not an issue at all.
Okay. Stormwater Task Force.
Have not met. We tried, but we didn't get enough members.
I saw you guys change the day. I appreciate that. The AgCom appreciates that, so we're not fighting over the rooms. You guys met the 2nd. We meet the 3rd.
well, we generally are going to
Right.
meet the 3rd.
We're generally going to meet the
Yeah,
3rd.
Yeah.
so we-
I mean, so, we picked the 3rd Thursday because that was when the members could meet, and it made sense. And now, the DPW director has Thursday conflicts. So we'll see what comes of that. We're hoping that Conservation has a representative by the September meeting so that we can do, a reorg and have all 5 members and be on the same page. So we'll be on the 3rd Thursday in September again. Who else meets that night besides AgCom?
That night is usually pretty full. And the.
Oh, because APDC randomly will meet on the 3rd Thursday.
APDC.
I mean, we can meet over here. That's not an issue.
Okay, well, either way, I just looking for it.
But yeah, we'll keep an eye out.
Okay.
And I can coordinate with you.
So who currently is involved in that? Is Select Board,
Select Board,
Planning,
Open Space,
Open Space?
not Open Space, Select Board, Planning, Conservation, and then there's 2 at-large seats.
Okay.
So we have all the members except for Concom. Because their representative was not reappointed to the board, and the remaining members were less than excited about that.
Wow. Surprise, surprise.
I guess they're pushing hard to find someone, so we'll see.
Very good. And it doesn't have to be a member of the Conservation Commission, is that?
I think it does.
Does?
Yeah. This one specifically speaks to
Oh, that's
members
right.
of.
That's right, yep, representative. All right, so stormwater, MRPC?
I was unable to go to that one because I was at the stormwater meeting. That was not
That
meant
wasn't?
to be. That wasn't, yes.
Yeah, schedule. How about JTC?
We have not met. We're doing every other month, so we'll meet next month.
Okay. Very good. And just for our viewing audience, that's Montezuma Regional Planning Commission and Montezuma Joint Transportation Commission. So, director's items, take it away.
So, I wrote the email about this, and I don't know what happened, it didn't send, because I went to get information on it today, and
Transitions, we've been having issues.
it,
Noticed a few of them.
I honestly think it was user error. I think I typed it, I opened a different email, and I thought I'd sent it, but it does this weird thing where it keeps it open at the bottom, and the whole Office Online thing is a learning process, so I'll make sure that that goes out this week. Special town meeting, November 15th, 2022. It's a Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. Be there, be square. The warrant opens tomorrow and closes September 20th. So I will bring a proposal for the item that I raised earlier to you all for the next meeting,
What time do you say the special town meeting is?
7 PM.
Okay, cool.
We'll be getting a mailer, right?
Yeah, everybody who lives in town gets a warrant.
I can put on my calendar now and then,
And then not be surprised when it shows up
yes.
2 weeks before. And by way of on items, the Pondview Commons project was filed on Thursday.
Before we get there.
Yep.
Last year, no, this summer, the annual town meeting this year.
Yes.
There were people saying that they did not receive a warrant. Has there been any looking into or discussion?
It's the first I've heard of it.
There was at the meeting that had expressed unhappiness. I'm pretty sure that that was the case. There was something that wasn't. I'm pretty sure that was.
So.
If you don't remember it, then that's probably not the case.
My recollection of town meeting and people being disgruntled about something specific was information revolving around the town hall TCP project and cost estimates and values of work, and folks not getting that information until the last minute because they were pushing hard to finalize certain numbers. And I think a lot of the debate went back and forth about we didn't have this for 14 days, we only had it for 6 days, and I don't recall anyone saying they didn't get a warrant. I think it was more about the process of presenting numerical figures as part of the warrant and how some of it wasn't included. You talk to a lot more people at town meeting than I do, so I don't know if there are people who didn't get warrants, and it's just not something I'm aware of.
Okay, no worries. I just wanted to mention it.
But I mean, so the town manager prints them all, and they get sent out directly to all addresses. So it's not even addressed individual, it's just to residents
Right.
on the street listing. So the only way I could see it happening is if a house was completed within the week of the mailing, and that person might not have gotten a warrant, but I think once the post office has an address, they're able to get it to them.
Yeah, and it's not a huge deal because there are available copies.
Correct.
So.
I mean, the huge deal is A, not knowing the meeting's happening, or B, not having, the malice of forethought to think about what's coming up at the meeting.
All right, very good. So we've received an application?
Yes, Pondview Commons has filed their application. It was filed Thursday, so I would expect that this board would be seeing that in the very short term.
What are we going to be seeing?
You'll receive a packet for comment from the planning board. So it will become an agenda item on a meeting. The board can review the materials submitted and as a group come up with a series of comments which I will compile and pass along to the zoning board.
Okay.
MBTA Communities, Karen Chapman from the MRPC will be coming to our meeting on September 12th to...
Our next meeting.
Yep. To start the... we have a signed executed contract with MRP to help move us through this process to start with, and look at how the town can comply, where, why, and if we're going to comply. So that will be a good kickoff, and it will be a little less than a year is what the anticipated project schedule is, but we have the ability to drag it out if necessary. Maybe it's a little less than 2 years. I'll have to look at it again. I don't remember if it's 2024 that it ends or if it's 2023. But she said we have the ability to amend and modify it to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room.
Okay. Was there any further disgruntlement from the towns that didn't like it?
I don't think any of the towns like it, quite frankly, because I've read some news articles that communities, Garlington and Newton, are saying, you know, we're already dense, we're already pushing development in those areas, and this just makes it unreasonable because they end up being required to put in 10% of, or 15% of their existing unit count. And when their existing unit count is 5 times what we have, that number goes up and up and up, and it needs to be within very specified areas of a quarter mile or half mile of transportation hubs. So when you have 3 and 4 transportation hubs and you're just kind of creating this continued megalopolis of development on top of development on top of development, and they don't know how to cope with it any better than we do. And even the density that they already have, this seems almost unfathomable at times to put it on top of that development. But I don't think there's any real backing down from this.
Okay.
And who knows? November is a gubernatorial election, and the next governor could say, you know what, housing's great, this law is just not the way to do it, and push the legislature to back it off, especially with all the furor over it.
Well, thank you for that input. Nothing on zoning infrastructure and master plan?
No, that links back to Director's Item A.
Okay, so did we kind of ball that discussion about the infrastructure and change it into looking at making the committee? Is that what we?
Yeah, that group will start that discussion, and that discussion will bleed back out. So it's not, I call it a committee, it's really a collection of individuals representing other committees having a discussion that will go back to each individual committee.
Okay. But now that we've gotten the application, what's the expected timeline on that?
On Pondview?
Yeah.
The hearing has to open within 30 days, but how long the hearing goes is wholly dependent on the zoning board and how they deal with the applicant. And if you asked me, exclusive of this project, if you said, I live in town X and someone's going to come in with a comp permit, what am I going to be looking at time-wise? I'd say you're probably in a 12-month, 18-month time frame.
Okay.
Again,
So then we're not too late to start this infrastructure?
No, I wouldn't think so. I'll give you the caveat that when someone comes to me and says, I want to do a site plan, I tell them it's going to be a 60 to 90-day process. And some of them are quicker, some of them are longer, but, I think that's a reasonable bookend. So I think, a year to 18 months is probably not an unrealistic comprehensive permit process.
Okay. Super. I guess that rounds us out to public comment, and it looks like you're the only one with us.
It does.
Board comment, concerns?
I have this is on the very definition of minor. I know that there was some grant work done for trail mapping and everything. And are those the new maps that are out in the town conservation land?
Yes.
Golly, they're swell. Really, real nice, clear trail maps labeled "You Are Here." I think they're going to be a big boon for members of the community who want to get out and explore our town forest and town conservation land. And if you're not super familiar with the trails already, what a benefit for those people to be able to actually get out and see it and not feel intimidated by the woods, hopefully.
Nice.
They also, as part of that project, did a live, created a live layer on the town GIS. So you can open it up and it will have the trail maps on it and it will track you as you are.
Oh,
So you can get that through the, I believe, through the conservation webpage as well. So if you're out, you can just have it on your phone and
Nice.
see it.
Is that like an app you have to put?
It's not an app, it's through the cartographics, the online GIS program.
I hope that gets put out to the members of the community in a way that's more, maybe more touching more people than those who happen to watch us on public access are, because, although shout out to those of you who do. Because I think that's the kind of thing that could really, although I love having the trail to myself with my dogs, in practice, it's a great public resource, and I hope people avail themselves of it, especially those who weren't comfy necessarily, because
Sure.
they didn't have the knowledge before.
Excellent. Yeah, I understand you got $26,000 for trail mapping and mark.
I think, not me, the chair of the Conservation
Yeah,
Commission.
right. Yep.
Yeah, he did a nice job.
Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, well, I don't know that they're not finished, but they had a whole bunch of trail markers and they were looking for volunteers. I'm not sure if they're
Always
finished.
looking for volunteers.
I didn't know, I saw that up, but I saw it was a few months old. I didn't know if that was still active.
Yeah, I mean, he still has all sorts of the blazes, nails. You get in contact with him or Nadia, who's the new conservation administrator, and
I have two kids who just learned,
like
who are
to
about to
drive
learn.
nails into trees.
Oh, well, they just, I don't know if they do, but they're about to find out they're gonna.
Say, I wish I could have set my 9-year-old out there. He'd sit in the driveway and pound nails into 2x4s for hours on end.
All right, any further board comments or concerns? If there are no more, then I would accept a motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn this meeting.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, folks.